Hello and welcome back to this tutorial. So this is our currency converter Chaching, and today we are going to do the internet part of the project. So we're going to basically enable our application to go out over the internet and grab current exchange rate values so you can get an accurate conversion. So there are a few things when you're trying to do networking stuff in a mobile device. So basically I'm gonna go like through the maybe like some wrong ways you could do it and some of the maybe more naive ways of doing it, and then in the end I'm gonna come to like a very simple way to do the same thing but using libraries, so using code other people have written to do internet calls, which is probably what you should do because that way you eliminate a lot of mistakes you might be making, and also it speeds up your development tremendously. That's why there are libraries in Java. So right, so to do an internet call, the let's say the I have a method here I've written. I've copy pasted together on the internet. So this is my method get website. So it gets a URL address. It uses that URL to go out and pull the content of that URL as a string, and then it eventually returns that content as a string. So you can see there's a bunch of red here. You just need to import some things here. Import. There's a short. What is control one? All right. Import that. Import that. Pretty sure there's a shortcut to import all of these, but basically they're all pretty straightforward. Some error catching here, and all our errors are gone. So right, so I'm doing this. So this is fine, but there's I'm gonna do something the wrong way here, and just to illustrate some things that you should keep in mind when you're doing networking stuff. So I'm gonna call my website here. Call my get website method here. So string website text is equal to get website, and I'm gonna say need to pass the URL. Oops. You're gonna get the Google website for now. Eventually we'll be getting obviously the exchange rates from openexchangerate.org. Remember in the previous video I told you to sign up. You're gonna get a key like this. Don't use my key. So basically what you're gonna do once you get the key is use the same URL but replace the last part here with your own key. Again, don't use this one because then we'll all be using the same key and it'll overload our account. So get your own key. Sorry, so that's the text there. You'll be getting the text, and I'm gonna log it. So when you do the logging, it outputs it to catalog, so you can see what's going on. Sort of log that, let's say, information. Give it a tag. Tag can be anything, but use something descriptive here. Site. Right, so that's the actual thing we're going to log, and you need to import android.util. Yeah. Right, so that. Now, if you've ever installed an Android application, you know there are a bunch of permissions you have to accept when you're installing an app, and going out over the internet is one of those things that need permissions. So we need to add a internet users permission to our app. So I'm gonna save that. Go to your manifest. Some people like to do it in XML. I can never remember exactly how it looks. So go to permissions down here. Go to add, and you want users permission. Okay. Then you come down here to the name, and you find the permission which you need. You see there are a bunch of these. So what I want is Android permission internet. Right, save that. So now our application has permission to go out over the internet. Otherwise, if you don't put this in, it will crash because your app is not allowed to do internet calls. Right, so uh, there's one thing wrong here in this app. So this will work in versions of Android before Honeycomb. So before Android 3, I think this will work. But it's a bad idea because what we are doing here is we are calling doing a network operation on the main thread. So basically, when your application is running, the UI, the interface is running on the main thread. So if you call a network operation on the main thread, it means this operation right here will block. So once it reaches here, it will have to wait for this entire operation to finish before it can continue, and this causes like a freeze in your app. So you can see that your app is gonna freeze, and if it freezes for longer than 5 seconds, then Android is gonna kill it. Then you get that, that very common pop-up in Android apps, application not responding, ANR. So before Android 3, they used to do that. They used to allow you to run it on the main thread, but after 5 seconds, you get they would kill the application. So after Android 3, they don't allow you at all to run network threads on the main thread. So no networking stuff at all on the main thread. So if you run this on like a honeycomb and later, like Android, what is it, ice cream sandwich 4 point something, it will crash immediately because it will detect there's a network operation being conducted on the main thread, so it will crash immediately. And I have two emulators here. One is 2.33 and one is 4 something, 4 point something something. And then I'm gonna run this app on both, and we'll see how it goes. Alright, so we have our two emulators running, and if you look at our app, the way this works right now is as soon as the onCreate method is hit, and this is a lifecycle method, so it will be hit automatically when the app is starting, we go out and try to get google.com and try to get the HTML. So if you go to head over, so there, Google can't escape. There you go. So this is your regular Google. If you right click anywhere on the page and you go view source or whatever, depends on the browser you're using, something similar. You see this is the HTML which makes up the google.com website. And so this is what we're going to fetch right now. Right, so launch our app. Run as Android app. Gonna launch it on the 2.33 emulator. And see that at least it launched. There are no crashes, so this means it's executed at least somewhat successfully. Just to illustrate what I'm talking about with the different versions of Android, let me just run it on the newer version of Android. So this is 4 point something, 4.1 I think. So now we are launching it here, and you see it crashes immediately. So as soon as we hit that, we're gonna crash. And if we go to our logcat, first switch to the appropriate device here, go back to the logcat, look, I hate this logcat thing. Okay, look at all of the errors, all of the messages, filter to errors here, and we'll see all the red stuff is usually the errors. And if we look yeah, right here, unable to start activity, Android OS network on main thread exception. So you're performing a network call on the main thread, which is not allowed on Android honeycomb, I think, and upwards. So that's that. So how do we fix that? Well, what we need to do is put the network calls on another thread. So you can do this the old-fashioned with Java threading if you want, but the recommended way of doing it in Android is with an AsyncTask. So let's see if we can create an AsyncTask here. So right, so to do that you need to create an AsyncTask, and an AsyncTask is an Android it's an Android class, so you need to extend this AsyncTask. You can look at the documentation about a lot more info. So this is usually implemented as an inner class. So what you need to do is so we are inside our main our activity class here. So public class get, give it some meaningful name, web page task extends. This is where the async task comes in. Now we just finish this off at the end here and can talk about these parameters. So these parameters, if you look at the documentation here, you'll see that right, you have these parameters. These are called varags, variable arguments. So in Java you have the thing where you can, you see the three dots here, params dot dot dot, means can have a variable amount of parameters passed. So these are passed as an array, so you can pass either 0 or more parameters to this method. There's no set amount of parameters, and they are passed as an array, so you should sort of remember this. And we'll see. So the first one is a parameter you're passing to the async task. So if you want to pass, like I think we're going to pass the URL, for example. So you can something you want to pass when you start the async task. This is the first one. The second one is the progress parameter. So if, for example, let's say you're downloading 100 files and you want your users to see a little progress bar that, you know, as a file is downloaded, it's, you know, it's moving along, 1 file, 2 files, and so on. So this is if you want to pass progress. So you can periodically, in your, when you're doing the work in the background, you can pass the amount of progress that's actually taking place. And the last one is the result. So if you want at the end of your whatever you're doing in the background thread, you want to pass a result back, that's the last parameter. You can also put them all as void if you don't have anything to pass anywhere. So that's another option. So I think we are going to pass 2 here. So for a function like this, which is downloading a website, there's no really way of passing progress, because there is no way to know when this download is going to complete, because you are not downloading a certain number of files, and we're downloading this website, but we don't really know the size of the website. We don't know the speed of the internet connection, so there's no real way of showing any real progress. So I'm not going to do any showing of actual, you know, step-by-step progress. So what I want to do is pass a string for the first one, because I want to pass the URL string. So the next one is void. This is the progress one. That's void, and the result is also a string. This is the website content. Right. So you see there's an error. So if you implement an async task, you need to implement at least one method, one to override. Right, to implement a method called do in background. So this is the method that will actually do the work in the background thread. So if I just click add and implemented methods here, it will add that do in background. So all the actual work should take place in the do in background method here, because this is conducted on another thread, so it doesn't run on the main thread, doesn't cause your application to freeze up, and doesn't crash your application on some versions of Android. There are also some other methods you can override. So if I right click here, go source, override implement methods, you can see these are the methods available to you. So on post execute is what happens after the do in background has completed, or has crashed, has finished, however it is finished, successfully or unsuccessfully. On pre execute is what happens before the do in background is called. So let's say you want to show a progress bar, you can start it on pre-execute. You start the progress bar, then you do whatever work you're doing, and then on post-execute you close the progress bar. So that's how it's usually done. And there is also progress update. So like I said, if you want to show a step-by-step update of whatever you're doing in the background, you do it in the on progress update. So we're not going to use on progress update, but we can implement it and just leave it empty. So we click that, it adds everything here. So on pre-execute, you can show like a status, like a dialog that shows, hey, wait, I'm downloading something, or we can do a little spinning animation. Or so on progress update, like I said, you update whatever is happening in the background. You update so on progress update, you can access the main thread. So in doing background, you cannot access the main thread because this is on another thread. So it will crash the application if you try to you try to set the text here. So you have a text view, you want to set text, it's gonna crash because it's gonna say it's accessed from a different thread. That doesn't work in Java, so it's gonna crash. If you want to update anything, you do it on update progress here, on pre-execute, and on post-execute. There you can access the main thread safely. Right, so what do you want to do here? So async task, we get a URL, it's passed in here in doing background. So in doing background, I want to run this method, right? I want to do this. I'm gonna close that. I mean, cut it, put it in here. Now, I could just, let's see if I can do that actually. Return, right? So this get website method returns a string, and this do in background also needs to return a string because we promised a string here in post execute, right? So you need to sort of keep in mind you need to post it. So this is our result. So yeah, get rid of that. So I'm not too, yeah, that's not too bad, I think. Of course, you can also just move all this actual code into the doing background method here, but I think this is good. You might want to use get website somewhere else. So at the end of this tutorial, I'm going to show you just a simple way that a library actually that combines all of these. So but I think the AsyncTask stuff is good to know because it's you need to use this in doing other things, not just networking. So if you wanna do like a long database call, let's say you're creating a big database, so that's going to freeze up the device. If you do it on the main thread, you need to stick it in a AsyncTask and so on. If you wanna do, I don't know, some fancy processing in the background or in your app, like maybe an Instagram, right? Takes a picture and does some algorithms on it to make it look a certain way. So that needs to happen in the background thread also. So you can use an async task for, you should use an async task for all those type of things. Right, so this will return a result here. Now the result is the website string that we just obtained from the website. The, like I said, the, what was it, the HTML of the page we actually fetched, right? Like I said, view source. So what do we want to do with this result? So let's see here. I think I'm going to just log it for now. So in our app, this is going to be the JSON string containing the exchange rates, right? Like we talked about in the previous tutorial. So let's try this again, and we're gonna log it here. So just to show that, alright. So right, so this is, we written our async task. We need to execute the task. And how do we do that? So to execute this task, because right now it won't do anything because we never actually call this get web page task. So anyway, so what we're going to do is we need to execute this. So we're going to do it the same way here on create. Eventually, I think we want to do this when the user presses the button. So just gonna put it here for now. So new get web page task. You need to, right, so we have a string parameter as our first. So this we need to pass a string, which is the URL in our case. So right, and probably need to change a few things. So let's just, I want to be able to pass the URL, but it's not strictly necessary because maybe our application only needs to access one URL, so there's never any need to. You could just hard code it in the async task itself, but I want to pass it, so and then dot execute. So is it like that? I got the other way around, I think. Oops, sorry. Execute, pass the parameter. Right. So what will happen now? Previously, when it hit the get website, it was like what they call it? Freezing, not freezing. Blocking, right? So that previously it was a blocking call. So when it hit that get website previously, it won't move past it until the get website method returned the result. So, but now as soon as it hits this one, it will go off and do this on a separate thread, and our application will continue running with the next statements. Whatever is down here will continue immediately without waiting for the phone to actually go out and fetch the website or whatever. So that way our app doesn't freeze and Android does not kill our application in Honeycomb and higher. Right, so you can see here I just realized I'm passing the URL, but I'm not using the URL for anything. So what you want to do is, so these dots, the means this is an basically you're gonna get an array, right? So what these, like I said, what these dots mean is that you can receive multiple values and they are stored in an array basically. So this is I don't like how they use arg0. What should we call this? Let's call it URL, right? So this is an array. So we need to pass. We know we're only receiving one, so we need to get the first value of this URL. So you're gonna do URL helps when you spell it correctly. So we're getting the first element of the URL, which we know we're only passing one. So if you had multiple values, you can access them individually or loop through them or whatever. Right, I think that's it. We're calling the get website with the correct parameter. We are returning a string, which is then passed to on post execute. Let's see how that goes. So this is a previous crash here. I'm gonna just launch it on the new Android version, 4 point something, and see if it doesn't crash immediately. Now I don't have any network connectivity, as you can see in the emulator. That happens, but I just want to see that it doesn't crash immediately like it did previous. That will be some measure of success, and then I'll try to get the internet back on, and then we'll see. Right, so no crash, right? So Android, I mean, is happy with this. We're doing it on a background thread, so it doesn't crash our app because we're not doing network operations on the main thread anymore. Right, and you might have seen the Genymotion video I put up. The reason I'm not using it is because I'm on Windows 8, and Windows 8 has a problem with VirtualBox, and it's crashing. I mean, it refuses to boot up if you install VirtualBox. I actually had to spend a few days trying to fix my Windows 8 because it won't start anymore after installing VirtualBox. So that's why I'm back on the default emulators here. Right, so that's that. Let me get the internet back on, and then we'll do a final version of this. How we are actually, the way I recommend you do it in any real applications you're building. Right, so I managed to launch the emulator now with an internet connection. See Yahoo is loading up fine, so let's try to launch our app now. See what happens here. So this one right here, 4.1. The other one still has no internet connection. It happens if you having internet connection problems. Google it. You'll see a Stack Overflow thread with a lot of people having the same issues. So maybe you can work it out. Right, so that's launching. That should be executing this in the background right now. So we have no visual way of telling it. So I'm gonna go to the devices, select our emulator here, go to the Right, so emulators produce a lot of errors sometimes. It doesn't necessarily mean it's in your application. You need to. So this is the browser. I don't see anything too shocking. Yeah, where is it? Cha-ching. So where did I go wrong? So here, if I filter it by cha-ching, you can see. So this is obviously the Google website. You can see the same uh, HTML which we had on that web page. Google five icons. So this is the HTML, so you can see it's working. So right here we are logging the results in our post execute, and we can see we're getting the results we are expecting. So one quick change here, you're gonna put the URL of the currency exchange API here. So again, get your own app ID and just change the number there at the end. That's your app ID. Leave the rest of this alone. So I'm gonna copy that over here, change the URL, save that. We should probably put this in a constant somewhere just to be good programmers, but we'll do that in a minute. Gonna minimize my app here. Right, I like to minimize before I run, so I know it's loaded up again. Let that load up, and it should go out and fetch our exchange rates, because that's what we're trying to do. So I'm gonna go to the logcat here, go straight to cha-ching, clear that so that I don't confuse the errors between runs or the messages between runs. Let that load up, and hopefully something will appear soon. So it's going over. Oh, that was quick. So went out on the internet and got our exchange rates from openexchange.com. So you can see this is United Arab Emirates or something. So US dollars. Right, so that's all the currencies South African rand. So you see it's clearly working. So now what we need to do basically is go into these individual currencies and get the values, and so we can do our math. And that's what we are going to do in the next video. But for right now, final improvement to all this messy AsyncTask stuff and the especially messy get website. So we're doing a very simple website call. This should work pretty flawlessly, but if things get more complicated, you might not want to write your own get website or HTTP stuff. So the way I recommend you do this is get a library called Android Async HTTP. So computer became slow, very slow right now. Right, so go to this website, download this library, and you'll see we're going to use the example directly from the website here. So I'm gonna copy that. I'll try to copy that. My computer is going crazy here. Right, so I'm gonna close one of these emulators because these things are heavy. They're dragging me down. I've pretty much used it for showing the point that different versions of Android behave differently with the network stuff. Right, so I've copied that. Right, first of all, like I said, you need to download the library. You're gonna get something like this. Android Async is something jar. You need to right click that, copy it, go to your project, find the go to your project, find the libs folder. If you don't have the libs folder, just right click your project itself and new folder and just name it libs. Make sure it's libs, not lib or anything else. Libs. So I'm gonna right click and paste that that jar in there. So that's that. Our jar magically appears, and that should be available to us automatically in the Android tools. Will take care of adding that automatically to your project as long as you put it in the libs folder. So that's that right there. So what we want to do is perform an async task. I mean an async HTTP request. Ugh. Close Chrome. Here. What we want is this right here. And I'll try to explain as best as I can what's going on here. So this is where we are currently performing our task, right? So I'm gonna comment that out and paste it right there. You see, you get some red. You need to import the libraries, loop J Android HTTP. Async response handler is also in loop J, and that's it. So what's gonna happen here is this basically wraps everything we have been doing into this neat little thing here. So it will go out over the internet to pull the data from the website, and if it succeeds, so on success, it will fire this on success method, and whatever is inside here will be executed. So we need to change the URL here, and I think this is a great time to just put this in a constant so we don't have to select refactor, extract constant, give it a better name, say API URL. Yep, I think that's good. API URL. By the way, we don't need that anymore, right? We're not going to be using the AsyncTask thing anymore. Put the API URL in here. And what do we want to happen on success? You got to log that. So this string is called the response, so just try to rename that. So now I can get rid of all this, get my website stuff and my async task, because I'm using a library. So all that code comes down to this if you're using this great library. So it's pretty cool. That's one of the advantages, because there are a lot of great libraries for Java and for Android. So you should use them wherever you can, because right. So so that's the equivalent of, let me just remove these exceptions, these things here. Yep. So that's all we need to do to pull data from the net. Excellent, right? Pretty straightforward once it all comes down to this. Now, I think I want to, well, it depends on how you think about your application. Maybe it's better if it gets the latest exchange rate as soon as it starts. Then the user doesn't have to wait when it clicks. I think that's actually the best thing. You don't have to wait, because if you only get the exchange rates when you press do it, then you have to wait for the actual device to go out over the internet and get the values. But if you just let it do it immediately as the app starts, then probably by the time the user has entered the info, the latest exchange rates have already been downloaded. So it depends on how you're thinking of this app. But this is simpler. So first I want to change the name of this button. So button do it, because these don't have really good names right now. So let's see. This is USD. So edit text. Let's call this USD. Yep, that's about it. So I want to get the button here. That's going to be TN do it. We go to button, find view by ID, that ID, that's button That's why you give it good names, because then you can sort of figure out which is which. Import the button, and then button do it that set on click listener, new on click listener. So that's that. Import the on click listener. Right, so I want this actually to take place in here. So sync task, I'm gonna move this everything here. I think this should still work. Yep. So now it's not going to do it automatically when the app starts. It's only going to do it when we press the button. And there are some other methods you can override. So on success is one of the methods. So that's what happens when this HTTP call succeeds. Otherwise, you can, let's see, if override implement methods. So they have an on failure. What happens if it fails for some reason? So maybe the network connection didn't happen, or the website is down or something. So you can have an on fail, on start, on finish. So on start and on finish, I think they are good to use for, say you want to display like a dialog box says, hey, I'm fetching results, or you want to do a spinning animation while you're fetching the results. I'm gonna put those in there. We'll see if we do anything with those.